Right. Our first story for today comes from Bleeping Computer, and the title here is Fake LDAP Nightmare Exploit on GitHub Spreads Info Stealer Malware. So, yet again, we have an example of a proof of concept that is not actually proof of concept for a vulnerability. It's actually a piece of malware that purports to be a proof of concept for what appeared to be a very significant and very severe vulnerability in LDAP. But as it turns out, there actually, as far as I can tell, there isn't a proof of concept for the remote code execution vulnerability. This proof of concept was applicable to a CVE that was actually for denial of service vulnerability, but there was a blog post written by a security company that kind of got them backwards, and apparently the threat actor here just rode the wave, and apparently some number of security researchers downloaded and ran this packaged executable that spawned a PowerShell script that created a scheduled task that packaged up some information about the system it was running on and uploaded it to an FTP server. So, unless there's something more to it, it's probably not the worst attack or worst malware I've ever seen. But I think it's a good example that, and I have seen it. I have done it in the aftermath of a severe vulnerability. Everybody likes to go see, kick the tires on it. Are we vulnerable? How bad is it? And so things like this, I think, tend to be pretty effective with security people. And so it really points out that we have to not let our guard down.
I still go back to, and we were talking about this on the show a week or two ago. The fact that it's hosted on GitHub seems to lend it credibility and this illusion of safety.
Yes.
And that's just not the case. And yeah, it's effective. People out there looking for information. If you're a security researcher, grabbing something random from GitHub and running it as a POC is not all that uncommon or out of the ordinary. And now it's being used against us.
And I'm left wondering if this was some kind of telemetry gathering exercise, like to figure out how many people would do it. Part of me thinks there's going to be some security researcher giving a presentation at DEF CON or some security conference about how many gullible security people there are. But on the other hand, it could be the lead into some other sort of attack against security people based on the information that they collected. So stay frosty, they say.
Yeah, there was a little bit of advice at the end of the article that I somewhat agreed with, which is try to review the code, upload the binaries to VirusTotal, try to have some review of it. But man, some of this stuff is so obfuscated. I don't know how much I don't know how often you're going to see something that's fairly bespoke trigger on VirusTotal that easily and that quickly. I don't know. I think there's a level of skepticism we need to maintain. But this is such a niche area of these POCs that there's such a small amount of people grabbing relative to the entire population of folks on the internet. There's such a small amount of people who are grabbing and running these things. It's really difficult to rely on the wisdom of crowds, as it were, from an anti-malware perspective to flag these things. And I don't know. I still go back to, is at some point GitHub going to be forced to do something if their own brand starts getting maligned too much for hosting malware? I don't know. I interrupted you. Sorry.
No. It seems like they're going to have to. I mean, it's by the way not an entirely different conversation that we've had about cloud providers and them needing to act more responsibly. Like it does. They're creating this ecosystem that can cause harm, and so they can hide behind, well, it's we're just facilitators here. But at some point, that probably will break down, if only in terms of reputation. I think that the takeaway for me is people are going to do this. I mean, security researchers are going to do this, but it's really important that you do it in an environment that is purpose built for that kind of testing, and including not allowing exfiltration. Like, you should be running something like this in a test environment that doesn't allow outbound access and all the things, which I know is inconvenient. A lot less convenient than just like saving it to your desktop and trying to run it. I understand.
Reddit and prod.
But like, we're security people. This I don't know. It shouldn't be novel.
Yeah, that's fair.
All
Have
right.
yourself a
So
good, sandbox to play with malware and run these things there.
absolutely.